After our conversation last week about the loud collage work and the misalignment theme that occurred in past work, I wanted to revisit some of my current work with a different mindset. That is, pare down my material, work slowly, and observe what was in front of me. Before midterm reviews, I created the following studies. I remembered what you'd said about photographing the same object at slightly different angles, and fortunately, I had done just that with the wooden A before I cut it up. I worked quickly, choosing only a few different angles to play with, and seeing what happened with both positive and negative takeaway. I made about 15 different compositions before coming to this last one, which, because of the angle, almost resembled a sculpture with its multi-sided lettering. I wanted to see where this would go, experimenting with different letters and possibly combining different letters, but I also knew I would get feedback in midterm reviews, so I paused on this project here. Midterm reviews provided me with a few key takeaways. John felt that while I had a well-defined subject area, my methodology was lacking and the act of collage didn't fit well. The comment about methodology threw me a bit, but I did have to agree about the recent collage work. It did feel like I was trying to make it a part of the process instead of it naturally happening, like in past projects. He also mentioned that my work, and especially my process of gathering, reminded him a lot of Christine Mendiersma, the Dutch artist whose Pig 05049 book I referenced last semester. More on this in a moment. Randy said it was clear I had a strong personal narrative thread in my work, but he felt there was a tension that existed between the content and the work itself. My work, he felt, was more of a formal interest. He also made a comment that though I refer to it as the logging industry, I don't take a look at any of the environmental aspects or challenges it faces. He continued on to say that the log I featured with the tree growing around the nail was probably put there intentionally. The environmental comment I could leave. My interest is in presenting facts, not taking a stance. But the comment about the nail being put there as sabotage, I was curious about. I did a bit of research and learned that this was called tree spiking, a practice that occurred often in the 70s and 80s. Originally, it was done to damage the saw, either of the lumberjack as they felled the tree, or at the mill as the log was being cut, or in hopes that the nail would bring discoloration to the wood itself, making it less valuable. Again, this theme of value appeared. I went to my dad, who shared with me some interesting information. This is a chart I quickly made to help myself understand this system. As it turns out, this thought process is specific to pine. Pine is ranked into different categories called commons. They are ranked 1 to 4, with 4 being the lowest grade. There are 4 main ways pine wood can be affected during growth: fire, disease, infestation, or nails. If any of the former 3 occur, it is considered salvaged logging. 10 years ago, any type of variation in wood, like these I just mentioned, would be considered less than and categorized as a 4 common. But now these imperfections are viewed as character and have been upgraded to 2 or 3 common, meaning their price has increased. Recently, there's been the addition of pattern grade, which falls somewhere in between number 2 and number 3 common. Pattern grade takes any cut of lumber and applies a pattern to it, be it for floors, moldings, or siding, increasing its overall value. It reminded me of the upgrading wood concept of my window project. This was also a project John mentioned he wanted to see finished, as do I, and I worked on it again this weekend. It's slowly but surely coming together, chunks of newly planed redwood being cut to fit the existing window frame. With all of this in mind, I met with Sarah Lee on Monday. We agreed it would be best to set the collage aside for now, and instead take a deeper look into this idea of how a value system maps onto a living thing. I began watching videos and talks with Christine Mendiersma, trying to understand how she processes her own information. Then, on Monday evening, I had a chance to meet one-on-one with my photography instructor, which proved really helpful. As we were looking through my contact sheets, which have mostly been pieces of wood in its various forms, he mentioned German artist and photographer Guillaume Partan. The work that you see here is from a series called Material Studies. It resonated. Pattern on pattern, all crafted by hand. Nelson encouraged me to get back into the studio, to just start combining stuff and get weird. It sounded so simple and fun, without expectation, so I did. I played around with everything I'd been gathering physically, aligning, layering, and rearranging, working similarly to the material studies I'd seen. I tried to work without thinking too much, just observing the relationships between the objects as I placed them next to each other. There was something that stuck out to me in these last images: the juxtaposition between the wood floor sample from Home Depot and the actual oak wood log. Currently, I seem to have 4 different projects that I'm working on simultaneously: the ladder studies, the value structure that exists in the processing of lumber, the physical work I'm doing with upgrading the wood within the window frame, and the new material studies. I feel content to continue developing these 4 projects over the next week to see what emerges, but I'd welcome any feedback or advice. Thank you.